Dear friends, today we have with us senior executive editor at NDTV and veteran journalist Aditya Raj Kaul. And today we are going to talk about the really serious security situation in Pakistan. There are reports coming in that a number of people have been killed in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Aditya, thank you for joining us today. Let's start with PoJK. What's actually happening there?
Well, thank you, Pallavi. As always, a pleasure to be with you here. Well, POK has been burning, and I would actually first begin by saying that we often say POK, but it's actually POJK, Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because the most of the territory that's been occupied is the territory of Jammu. There's probably less than 5% people who can actually speak Kashmiri in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So all these areas that we talk about, Rawalakot, Kotli, Bimber, etc., are actually territories of Jammu. On the other hand, nobody even talks about Gilgit-Baltistan, which is also a Pakistan-occupied territory and should be a part of current Union Territory of Ladakh. Now, for decades together, there's been a resentment, and there have been various phases of political protests, social protests by community organizations, political outfits, and civilian groups, civil society groups. And most of the times they've been scuttled. So the Pakistan army has this rule book of not allowing any kind of dissent, not allowing any freedom to dissent, or having any kind of a freedom of expression out there in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, many people might have seen the kind of visuals that are coming in from places like Muzaffarabad, Rawalakot, and Mirpur that are very, very disturbing. There are bullets being fired till now that we are speaking. We are speaking on 29th of July, and already more than 80 people have been killed in the last 1.5 months. So it's a very disturbing situation out there with large scale protests, mass rebellion, which many months ago began with simple issues. Now, what are the demands of these people? They're demanding better electricity, better prices for electricity. They're saying that they should have the first right on their natural resources. They're saying that the 12 seats in the so-called Azad Jammu and Kashmir Assembly that are reserved for the refugees should not be there, because this is often used by the Pakistani political forces to mollycoddle the people out there, to have their own demands met, and to really play with the election or the electorate. So clearly, these are very, very basic fundamental rights that people should actually get, but they don't. Now, there's a Mangla Dam that actually produces, water and electricity for the people of all across Pakistan. The same electricity is at much cheaper rate for common Pakistanis, but at a much, much higher price for people in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, why should people suffer? But while we are talking about the Pakistani brutality, the Pakistani deep states, antics there where they are completely subjugating mass people, civilians like Shaukat Nawaz Mir, basically many civilian leaders were in fact picked up, they were arrested, and for no crime. I mean, they have no criminal record. They have not even picked up a gun ever in life, and yet they face this time and again, and they've been simply arrested. And what is the crime? The crime is that they're asking for accountability, they're asking for transparency, and they're seeking answers for the Pakistan deep state, the puppet government of Pakistan in POJK. And there are no answers that are coming in. Now, the international media is almost banned from visiting POJK unless it is assisted by the ISPR, that is the Pakistan Army, or the military. So time and again, there have these protests that have happened, and now the protests have taken a much more severe, phase, where it's not restricted to just wheat prices or electricity prices or water, or the employment crisis all across. It is also about political rights. It is also about their stake in the government, and they are also seeking freedom from the Pakistani occupation. So there has been a simmering dissent among the people who do not consider themselves Pakistanis. So currently there are
Yeah.
protests that continue. There's no end in sight. There's been an internet blackout completely in POJK. And I think slowly and steadily, the end game of the Pakistani military is to create both POJK and POGB, that is Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and Pakistan occupied Gilgit Baltistan as their provinces in Pakistan. Now, whether this will happen, whether the Kashmiris or the common civilians will allow this to happen, only time will tell. But lastly, I'll say the larger point here. When the common people in POJK or POGB read Indian newspapers, and they see the kind of development that's happening in Jammu and Kashmir, or the peace that's been restored, or the kind of employment opportunities that are there, liberal arts that are there, cinema picking up, sports picking up, they consider themselves unlucky that they are in Pakistan's occupation and they do not have the same kind of opportunities, they do not have the same kind of prosperity or development that is coming their way. So they actually see that with India there would have been development. Also, for decades together, we've seen Pakistan use PoJK as a launchpad for terrorism. So there are groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Hizbul that launched their terrorists from launchpads in PoJK in places like Rawalakot, Kotli, Bimber, etc. These are the same places you would remember last year when Operation Sindoor happened. Some of the areas in PoJK were attacked as well. And these were the launchpads of the terrorists that were assisted, funded, sponsored, and a safe haven provided by the Pakistan Army and the ISI. So I think slowly and steadily there will be a realization. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of indoctrination against India as well. But slowly and steadily, I see civilian leaders in POJK also speak about India, also thank people, maybe few of them in India who are supporting them and who are actually empathizing with their state right now.
Aditya, you've been following this for a very long time. And have you ever seen a time in the past where there is such open expression in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir? These are occupied territories. So obviously, people have always been hesitant because it is not a democracy like India or, other democracies. But it seems that people have reached the edge, where they are now openly expressing their dissatisfaction in the manner that they are doing it. And we saw the visuals coming in. We saw how people have been killed. Do you think that this is a turning point?
Well, over the years, as I said, there have been protests. There have been a few hundred people who've been on the streets protesting, demanding, but those have been very, short-term protests, or there have been less people that have been involved. I think with the Joint Awami Action Committee of Jammu and Kashmir that has taken the center stage over the last 1.5 or 2 years, the expression or the level of the protest has increased manifold. There are now thousands of people on the streets, and that clearly indicates the level of anxiety, the level of pain, the level of longing, and the level of frustration and exhaustion that is there with the common people of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And I think they're also closely realizing that they've been used as a bargaining chip, they've been used as second class citizens by the Pakistani administrators. But to your question, I would say that I haven't seen the kind of scale or the kind of amount of people that are now on the streets ever before. I may not see this as a turning point, but I may see this as a foundation or a beginning of a kind of a revolt that may still take years, but it is something that one is a realization that is seeping in the common people in POJK. And secondly, it's going to be difficult for Pakistan Army, especially in Asim Munir and others, to control the situation because usually they ban the media, they basically ban the internet, and then they control the situation by arresting people or killing people or putting them into exile. But here it is a lot different. You need to have public sentiment or public support for any kind of your, strategic goals or aims. In this case, I don't think that the common civilians of POJK are with the Pakistan Army or with the deep state. So this level of anger, this level of angst will only increase further and not decrease. Okay, so it may not be a turning point yet, but this is something that is, moving sharply towards that turning point.